Good to have you with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We are broadcast all across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. That means on hundreds of AM and FM stations across the country. Sirius Satellite Radio, Channel 130. Greetings to all of you listening on Sirius today. We're on the EWTN YouTube channel, the smartphone app. Debbie, there isn't anyone in the world who has an excuse for not listening to our show.
Oh, that's overwhelming that we're on all. That's kind of nice, though. I mean, I think that's great that we have that big of a reach, and we just hope our listeners, this is a peer-driven ministry, so we want you to drive the show. And in order to do that, you got to call in and give us your takes on the different topics so that we can have a lively conversation. But by the end of the conversation, which is the quick hour that takes place here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, we want to be able to learn something new, grow closer to God, maybe have a new perspective. And it gives us a fresh, hopeful look at life and the world around us. So the number to dial, because our listeners want to get in really fast, they love to share their takes at 1-800-585-9396.
Today's show is a very important one. You're going to want to call if you have any issues, challenges, struggles, uphill battles with debt. Are you drowning in debt? That's what we're going to talk about today. We have a financial expert on with us. So if you find that you have just racked up those credit card bills and you don't know how to get out from under that seemingly a mountain of debt, maybe you're just starting out, getting married, and you want to know, should we take on a mortgage? How much debt is too much? What's productive debt versus unproductive? We can talk about educational debt. That's a really big issue for a lot of you. So 1-800-585-9396. Get on board.
Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up about student loans and student debt, because we at Take Two, Jerry and I have been receiving just numerous emails from all of our listeners sharing their kind words about how they like the Take Two show, and also asking for references and advice on certain situations. Please know, dear listeners, I want to, for both of us, extend our apologies. We were truly, blissfully overwhelmed with emails, so we're getting back to them, and I have to be the first one to confess there are a few emails that I thought I had sent a month ago and are still sitting on my desk. So I promise, you have my word, that I will make every effort to get responses to you all, and Jerry as well, I know, and we're working hard to do that. But please know we read everything and we're working on it, and a couple of them talked about student loans and student debt.
All right, well, Debbie has promised on my behalf, so I'm on the hook for that right now. Call with your questions about debt, 1-800-585-9396. We're joined by really a big EWTN fan. He and his wife listen and watch all the time. Ray Lucia is with us. His intelligent input and charismatic nature add to his ability to make the fiscal world of financial, tax, and retirement planning not only easy for the average investor to understand, but interesting as well. Ray is largely recognized for his own nationally syndicated radio show, which airs at this time, but he pre-recorded the show for today so he could be on with us and take your questions about the issue of debt. So, Ray, without further delay, thank you so much for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Well, thank you, Jerry and Debbie, for having me. I'm very, very excited to be on EWTN Radio. It's a blessing in many respects, and I'm just happy to be here.
Ray, I have to ask you, you had shared before we started the show that your wife, Jeannie, is a devoted listener to EWTN. And how has that impacted your marriage and your life?
Well, I don't get to watch football nearly as much, but, it's really amazing because we've had a phenomenal life, a very, very blessed existence. But we've, like most families, gone through many, many ups and downs. And it seems as if once we were introduced to Mother Angelica and EWTN, and I should say Jeannie introduced, and then she introduced me to it, there's not a day that goes by that we don't wake up with it or go to bed with it, and it's been an absolute blessing. So I have my wife to thank for that. In fact, she's either listening right now or in her church small group meeting talking about it. So it's been a real, real blessing in our lives.
Well, Ray, it's a blessing for us, and I know for our listeners to have you on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie today. So, dear folks, let's fill up those phone lines. You can't tell me that there isn't a person listening who doesn't have some issues with debt, maybe a little too much. Maybe you've managed to climb out of the hole of debt and you'd like to just share your inspiring story with our fellow listeners. Any kind of debt or financial questions, money management, Ray Lucia is with us. And again, the number is 1-800-585-9396.
And our lines fill up very fast. So please, dear listeners, don't wait to call in and share your take on the topic of the show is, are you drowning in debt? And having Ray Lucia on as an expert will really help us to grow. And also, I just wanted to mention to our listeners in the Station of the Cross area, if you just heard Jerry and I on the fund drive a few minutes ago before we stepped over to do the show, no, Jerry and I have not received the gift of bilocation yet. We're still praying for it. We are here in the wonderful Station of the Cross territory, and we are working the second day of the fund drive. So if you're listening in Buffalo, New York, or in Massachusetts, or wherever the Station of the Cross reaches on the app, call into your fund drive and pledge, because if you like to hear shows on EWTN like the Jerry and Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and other shows that are just amazing, this is the time to support Catholic radio. We feel passionate about it. But right now, we're talking about, are you drowning in debt? And if you have issues like that maybe are, kind of surrounding you and enveloping you and maybe stopping you from having that full freedom, that full spiritual freedom because of this thing called debt, call in right now and share your take.
1-800-585-9396. So Ray Lucia is with us. And Ray, can you kind of paint a picture for us, just generally speaking? We look at our government. It seems like we always run in this huge deficit. It looks like individuals and families are not managing their money well in a lot of cases. So paint a debt picture for us. Just say maybe for the average person, how bad is the situation, or is it bad at all?
Well, unfortunately, it's worse than is being reported, Jerry and Debbie, because when you hear about the statistics, the average American owes $8,000 in credit card debt. They're taking into account all Americans. My 90-year-old dad, for example, doesn't have any credit card debt because we took his credit cards away. But when you look at the individuals that actually do have a credit card and have credit card debt, it's not $8,000. It's closer to $16,000. That's just credit card debt. Throw in mortgage debt of $160,000 or so, student loan debt of $33,000 or so, and all of a sudden you have a debt crisis. But it's easy to understand why. We owe $18 trillion as a nation, and it gets worse by the second. And so with these low interest rates and the fact that we're living in an immediate gratification society, it's certainly understandable how many people can get into trouble.
Ray, I know we're getting ready to take a quick break, but I actually wanted to talk to you about this idea of instant gratification, immediate gratification, this idea that, instead of people buying things for a need, we buy for a want. And I wanted to really explore that a little deeper because I really think this could help our younger population maybe get a better grip on that, because I know that, I have grown children, but I know that a lot of my friends' kids that are still in the house and they're teenagers, they literally, when they're working right now on part-time jobs, some of them are paying their full paycheck to just luxuries, and they're not even putting any money away for safeguarding it or saving it, and that's frightening, because I remember when I was 16 and 17, Ray, I put away as much as I possibly could. It was like I was, just hiding it away, trying not to look at it, trying not to spend it, and now it seems like it's shifted dramatically. I'd really like to explore that after we get ready for the break. I know you're going to hear the music, Ray, in just a minute. We got the calls coming in. If you want to jump in, dear listeners, we'll be back after the break and go right to your calls. The number to dial is 1-800-585-9396. There's the music, our wonderful theme song, but we want to stay with you. We've got Ray Lucia with us. He's a financial expert. He's going to talk about helping us with this debt crisis that we're all facing in some way or another, even as a nation. So stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
I was debating an atheist online who said, Chris, you believing in God is like a kid coming down on Christmas morning, seeing presents under his tree, and saying, oh, look, presents, there must be a Santa. I replied, really? Because you not believing in God is like a kid coming down on Christmas morning, seeing presents under his tree, and saying, oh, look, presents, they must have exploded themselves here. No child has ever been that crazy. Now, a kid might get the identity of the gift giver wrong, but when he sees presents under the tree, he knows they didn't put themselves there. Likewise, everything made of matter has a source or an origin outside of itself, from your chair to your morning coffee to you. Have you ever stopped to consider that the universe is something made of matter? It had to come from something outside of itself that had the power to create a universe. The Big Bang did not Big Bang itself. There is a God. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com.
Hi, this is Teresa Tomeo, host of Catholic Connection, and we're glad you're listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Always great to have you with us. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Our special guest today, Ray Lucia, lives in the San Diego area. And he is a financial expert, has his own syndicated radio program that airs from noon to 3 Eastern Time. Ray, what are some of the outlets for your show before we continue and get your thoughts on what Debbie was bringing up before the break?
Well, thank you for asking. I've been syndicated for a number of years on Business Talk Radio and now Business Television. So it's a radio and TV program. It's actually 2 hours now that I've semi-retired. But we're in most of the major markets all around the country. So I have an opportunity to speak with individuals from literally all walks of life, young, old, rich, poor, etc. And this is probably my 25th, I think, year on the air, and I spent a good 38 years in the financial services industry, focusing really on saving for retirement.
Great. Well, it's wonderful to have you with us. And what about what Debbie brought up before the break there, Ray? We just live in a nation of, I got to have it now. It doesn't matter what the cost is. Doesn't matter if it just drives me deeper into debt. What's that situation like for us?
Well, it's perspective. A lot of young people, speaking of youngins, Debbie was talking about a 16-year-old. And what I would do is I would say to the 16-year-old, well, if you work hard, summertime, whatever it may be, or after school, and all you did was take $1,000, and if you took $1,000 one time, and when you're of retirement age, which is age 67, well, let's say it's 50 years later, $1,000, and if you put the money into the stock market and the stocks continue to grow at, say, 10% a year, you got $120,000. But if you did that every year, for the next 50 years, just $1,000, that $1,000 turns into almost $1.3 million. So it's perspective. When you talk about spending $1,000 on a stereo system or tricking out your car, you might say, that $1,000 could be worth $100,000 to me someday when I need it the most. So I think we have to change a perspective amongst young people, get them thinking about the fun that's involved in saving and accumulating, as opposed to the very brief encounter with that great feeling when you've got that stereo, because 2 weeks later you've got buyer's remorse.
Well, yeah, Ray, and that's even for adults as well. I mean, so many times I have friends that buy stuff and then they get it home, and a week later they're like, why did I buy that? I mean, it's ridiculous. And they end up marching themselves back to the store to return it. But that's really good what you said, Ray. That really helps, I think, does paint the picture that as parents and grandparents, it's our responsibility, and really as primary religious educators of the children as well. Also, this is part of it, and being good stewards, that we sit down with our children and our grandchildren and paint that picture, that long-term picture of what it means to save and to, like you said, I love that, watch it accumulate. Use all those buzzwords that are going to make these teens and young people really grasp it and say, okay, okay, I get that. It means a lot. It's gonna multiply. It's gonna get bigger. It's gonna expand. All the things that they want to hear as kids. That's a really good point. That's the first time I've ever heard it explained that way, Ray. So you see, you helped me already, and this show is just starting.
Well, Ray, what about...
there are several other things that I think can help individuals. Jeannie and I have been experimenting the last 6 months or a year or so with being on an almost exclusive cash basis. If we go out to lunch or dinner, we pay for cash. Just about every purchase, if we need to buy clothes or whatever, we make an attempt to buy it for cash. And that's had a dramatic impact on us psychologically. You don't spend nearly as much. I think I read a study once upon a time that said when you use a credit card to buy something, you'll spend about 125% more money. You just buy more stuff. And that's true whether you're leaving a tip. Not that we shouldn't tip people. We obviously should. But it's true whether you're buying clothes, cars, you name it. So now I attempt to, if I get a check from somewhere, I cash it. I put the cash in my pocket or in an envelope back at the house. We go out, we take $50 out of the envelope, and we go pay cash. And that's made an enormous difference, not only financially, but psychologically in how we spend.
Ray Lucia with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And now it's time for your calls. We got full phone lines, 1-800-585-9396. Are you drowning in debt, or do you just feel like you could use a little bit of advice on managing your finances in a godly way and in a way that's going to give you that freedom that you really want to have from the slavery, really, to debt? So we're going to start with Mary in Indiana, listening on Catholic Radio Indy. Hi, Mary. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and Ray Lucia.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. We've been struggling with this pretty much since we got married back in '85. And we just kind of got behind early. We had student loans we started out with, and then sending kids to Catholic school and medical expenses, and it just seems like, just thing after thing after thing. Even though we've had, pretty stable employment, we've never been able to get out of debt. We just keep getting into debt. And when we try to get out and we see a little light at the end of the tunnel, something major happens. Right now we've got two very old cars, so we're just kind of, knowing that very soon we're going to have to get another vehicle. And so we just can't seem to make it over the hump.
Yeah, well, you know what, Mary? You are not uncommon, so you don't have to feel alone in this. At least 20 or 25% of the entire American population are living this way. So I've experienced a lot on the telephone calls that I get. Let's go back to square one, Mary, because a lot of this has to do with employment and the sacrifices that sometimes we need to make from the standpoint of work. Do you both work, both you and your husband?
Yes, we both work. My husband's a high school teacher, and over the years he's done second jobs in addition to that, or worked in the summer. He's at a point now where he can't do that. He spends about all of his waking time just working on keeping up with teaching.
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up in the school teaching business. I was a football coach and a baseball coach and a school teacher. And unfortunately, I guess my wife and I didn't work the rhythm system right, because we had 4 children in 4 years, and I couldn't make ends meet. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. I could not make ends meet on a school teacher's salary. And so I did a couple of things. Number one, I taught driver's training for students. And back then, it was really good pay. I got paid $7.50 an hour for a couple hours after school every day, and I thought I died and went to heaven with that. And then I also sang and played guitar in a band, and I got 3, 4, 5 nights a week working for tips and a little bit of money. So I worked literally 18, 20 hours a day to get myself out of debt and give us a little bit of breathing room. Now, I can appreciate the fact that if you have health issues and you can't do that, that makes it a lot more difficult. But then I did one other thing. I upgraded my career. As much as I loved teaching and I loved coaching, I couldn't live on the $600 a month back then that I was earning net as a school teacher. My mortgage payment, if you can believe this, was $309 a month, but that was 50% of what my take-home pay was. So I entered the financial services business on a part-time basis, liked it, was pretty good at it, and then changed careers. So one of the things I would evaluate is any career opportunities for either you or your husband where you could upgrade. And then, of course, all of the other things that I'm sure you've prayed about and been lectured about in terms of spending. I don't think I have to preach to you what causes the problem of overspending. When you talk about health issues and so forth, a lot of that is unavoidable. So I would look at possibly picking up other income from other sources and praying a lot about what the Lord wants you to do with your lives. I tend to spend a whole heck of a lot of time nowadays doing my fair share of praying, thanks to EWTN and my wife. God bless you, Mary, and I hope that things work out for you.
Mary, any final comments for Ray?
No, I appreciate the input, and I appreciate the prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary, for taking the time to call in to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And Ray, I just wanted to, real quickly, before we go to Lisa in Amarillo, Texas, I wanted to share with our listeners that when we do the show every day, every weekday, we pick a short take from the show and we post it on Facebook and on our website, take2show.com. And so, dear listener, when you call in, you may be one of the ones that is the short take of Take Two. And it's kind of cool. So you make sure you check back on Facebook and see if you were the one that was picked. And we have various reasons for picking it, basically if it's on theme and on topic and stuff like that, and it works in a 2 to 3 minute time frame. But so thank you, Mary, and for calling in to Take Two. We hope you have a blessed day. Ray, real quickly before we go to Lisa, I just wanted to say, when you talked about cash only, I just have to tell you, I hope my husband's not listening, because he has been hounding me to do that for years. He said to me, I would love to just have envelopes and just do cash only. And I have to tell you, Ray, I struggle personally, not because of paying for cash. I just get nervous carrying that kind of cash around with me. I feel, for me personally, I feel like kind of safer to carry a credit card. So let's go to Lisa first, but think about that, Ray, because I'd like you to address that of how maybe to stabilize that. Okay, Lisa. We're going up here? Where are we going?
We got about 2 minutes before
2
the
minutes.
break,
Okay.
so we can get
to
started
Lisa?
with Lisa, and when we hear the music, we're going to go to the break. Yeah. So,
Okay,
hey, Lisa,
perfect.
how are you?
I'm doing really good. How's everybody there?
Just
Great.
fine.
Well, I have a comment on this particular, talk you're having today. Is about the teenagers. Of course, it's in general, because the teenagers become adults pretty soon. When they graduate from high school, they could be 17, 18 years old, and then most of them go to or try to go and get an education. So they are always receiving the suggestion of establish your credit. And there, right there, is saying start on applying for a loan, and before they know it, I mean, even before 6 months, they're already in big debt, and then they don't know what to do about it. So I'm thinking that what they need to know and to hear is that, yes, you do think about establishing your credit, but do it at a slow pace, do it for the important things, and just do it one thing at a time, almost like a monthly basis. Check what amount you owe instead of having, your statement with so many thousands of dollars when it could have been just maybe a couple of hundred. And I think that's very important for the teenagers to know that, because, they're becoming mature, yes, and they're becoming independent, but they are really ignorant in that area, because they don't realize it. Then now you're coming to the real world. So that's a reality check there. And it's better to know it before you are already into a high amount. I mean, thousands of dollars really build up soon. And that was a comment that I have.
Ray, if you can comment on that right after the break. We got
very
a hard.
quickly. I know we're
Well,
going to break.
Ray, we got a hard break coming up here, so I apologize for that.
That's covered. If I can hear the music, I'll know when to get out. But basically, I agree with what Lisa is saying about credit and teenagers, and there is a solution to that. Maybe when we come back from the break, we can discuss that, guys. So why don't we do that so that we don't take up too much time, and then I'll be happy to give you my take on what to do if you have teenagers that want to get credit, but they don't know how to use it. All right?
All right. Sounds great. More with Ray Lucia on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie coming right up.
EWTN is now on Twitter. Get short, timely messages from EWTN on your computer or cell phone. It's easy to stay up to date on a wide variety of topics. Pro-life news, Vatican announcements, catechesis, apologetics, the latest EWTN programming, and more. You can link to EWTN on Twitter from our homepage or go to twitter.com/EWTN. At work, at home, at school, and on the road. Stay connected to your world with EWTN's Twitter page.
60 Seconds with Mother Angelica.
Do you know yourself? Nobody knows themselves. That's why if somebody says, "Why are you so impatient?" you say, "I'm not impatient." Or, "Why are you so angry all the time?" Who's angry? I'm never angry. Okay. We don't know ourselves. You know, I've told you that there's so many of these mystics have said that the Lord would come one day and give us a warning, that we would see ourselves as He sees us. Oh, that would be a shock, huh? Somebody sent me a videotape. We watched it the other night. These people who had death experiences, they all saw this light, but what they all saw was themselves. And they were surprised. Well, if you know yourself, you wouldn't be surprised, would you?
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Something amazing is happening on EWTN. One wildly dynamic speaker and a team of young missionaries are on a cross-country road trip, spreading their message of hope in Christ. Their passion is awakening youth to the power of God's love. It's energetic, honest, affirming, like nothing you've seen on TV before. You're Amazing with Justin Fatika, Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN.
Our phone number, 1-800-585-9396. Take two with Jerry and Debbie, and we are blessed to be joined today by Ray Lucia. He is a financial expert, has his own syndicated radio and TV shows on finance. And Ray, as we got set for the break there, Lisa in Amarillo is suggesting that maybe young people can learn if they get into debt little by little and manage that and pay it down and these sorts of things. You got a start on an answer there. Sorry about the break, but what else would you say to Lisa?
Well, it is so important that 18 and 19-year-olds and 16-year-olds have an understanding of how debt works. An example that I like to use is if you went out and borrowed $10,000 and on a credit card, and the credit card interest was 15%, and some of them, by the way, are 30%, but at 15% interest, if you made the minimum payment, it would take you almost 30 years to pay that credit card off, and you would pay almost as much in interest as you actually borrowed in the first place. So giving them perspective, I think, is important. Now, I do think it is also important for youngsters to establish their credit early, especially if they want to buy a home someday or if they need to buy a car for their job. And you do that by establishing credit, but you must pay the bill off at the end of every month. You cannot let it accumulate because, as Lisa pointed out, it can get away from you. You can start building more and more credit, and the more and more credit you build, typically the credit card companies love you, and they'll extend your credit. So I would suggest to teenagers, get a gas card. Pay for your gasoline by using a credit card. That will establish credit for you, but then also use a debit card for other expenses, and that way you're using your own money. And when the debit card runs dry at the end of the month, you're out of money, and it will teach you financial discipline. I think that's the best advice that we can give to teenagers, but more importantly, this is more about education than it is anything else. Teenagers are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. I think if we sat down with them as parents and as peers and talked to them about debt, talk to them about the ravages of debt, that maybe we can make an impression on them and get them to think long-term instead of thinking about, these $250 jeans that they dig from Nordstrom's.
Well, Ray, I think you summed that up beautifully. Again, a shout out to all our parents and grandparents out there to sit down with our youth and our teens and to really educate and to share our experiences so that they can learn from it. I think that was great. I'm glad Lisa called in and shared her take from Amarillo, Texas. Thank you, Lisa. Have a beautiful and blessed day. Hope that answered everything and maybe gave some words of wisdom to others to move forward. Okay, so we're going to Ron in Kimball, Nebraska. Ron's listening on Denver Catholic Radio. Well, that's interesting. If you're in Nebraska, Ron, you're listening to Denver Catholic Radio. Is that like right on the border, Ron? Welcome to Take Two.
Yes, we're right on the border.
Oh, cool.
Wyoming and Colorado.
Beautiful. That must be beautiful. Are you having a beautiful day?
Oh, yeah, it's gorgeous here.
Oh, wonderful. So what's your take on this topic of are you drowning in debt, Ron?
Yes, bear with me. I've never been on the radio before, but I just felt like calling in today because I'm so passionate about the topic of finances. It's something that my wife brought to me, and I didn't think that it was something that we could do. But in a year, we paid off $36,000 worth of credit card debt and numerous other debt. But what a terrific day that was. And now we're working on saving money. And, we drive the old cars and everything, but we're just getting things paid off. And people kind of look down on you for driving old cars and whatnot, but they're paid for, and we're not, spending all that money on a new vehicle. And it's just really self-satisfying,
Well, Ray, there's a success story.
You know what? I think that's brilliant. Can I ask a question of Ron? Ron, what is yours and your wife's income? I'm curious about that.
Our income is $4,000 a month.
So here's what's amazing to me about this story, guys. What's amazing is here's a man, Ron, and his wife, who paid off almost a year's worth of income in a year in debt. And so when we hear the stories about people and how much, it's a burden on them and so forth, it's obvious. But somehow or another, if you put your mind to it, you can get this done. God bless you, Ron. I think that what you're doing is a great example for everyone, including myself, because that's an exciting story. Thank you for calling and sharing that, because very, very few people have the tenacity to be able to pay off that amount of debt in 1 year.
And Ron, I would just like to say you were an inspiration to all of us, and thank you for taking your first time and calling in. I hope it was an enjoyable experience because you did great, and it really did help all of us. And one last thing I just want to say, I remember my folks used to always say to me, when you see those people driving those brand new cars, think to yourself that most of the time they can't afford them. Most of the time they went into debt to get that brand new car. So I've often, because I used to love brand new shiny cars, and then I remember what my folks used to say, and that always helped me. And so if that could help you, Ron, maybe that'll give a different mindset.
Thanks, Ron, for the call. Here's our number. We're talking about debt, finances, money management. What is your take? What is your concern or question? We have Ray Lucia, a financial expert, on with us, and we have an open line for you at 1-800-585-9396. We heard from Lisa on our Facebook page. She says, unfortunately, we filed bankruptcy a number of years ago, but we changed our habits and have no debts except our house, an emergency fund, and we try to be generous. It has saved a lot of stress. And Josephina says, all capital letters, stop spending money that you do not have.
Sounds like
good
my
advice
husband.
from Josephina. We're going to hear from Paul next in Mobile, Alabama, listening on Archangel Radio. Paul, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and Ray Lucia. Thanks for your patience on the line there, Paul.
Hello. How are y'all doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for calling.
Great. Thank you.
I wanted to talk just a little bit about the financial courses that are out there. There are several that are readily available. One is Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University. Another one is Crown Financial. I've been through both of those. Neither one are perfect, in my opinion. Like most things aren't perfect, but both of them are pretty good about the overall living on less than you make, getting out of debt, living on a budget. They're pretty inexpensive. They've been very helpful to both me and people that I know. And I just wanted to get your expert opinion on them and to encourage other people to seek those courses out, because they can be very helpful, in my opinion.
Well, thank you for that, Paul. Dave, of course, is a radio personality, as I am, and I've followed his advice, and I think he's done an excellent job in helping people with his financial peace organization get out of debt. And that's his mantra. And while I don't totally agree with everything that these courses recommend, you're not going to. But the fact of the matter is they do get you going in the right direction. And I have great respect for Dave Ramsey and others that have actually taken the time to put together these programs. But let's talk about a few things, though, that I think are also important when it comes to this whole concept of financial responsibility. And I know Dave does an excellent job of talking about that, but it really is your responsibility as an individual, as a family man, or as a family person, to make sure you think through the actions that you take and how you rectify the situation if you get yourself into hock. So I think if it means taking a course that will get you to understand where the issues lie and how to solve the problems, great. But a lot of that has to do with the peer pressure as well. That's why we have things like, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. It works fantastically well for those that are addicted to alcohol. Well, many people are addicted to spending, and I believe those courses are very, very worthwhile to take.
Ray, can I ask you a question? Do you have any written materials or any courses? Or I know you're on TV and radio, but is there anything we can acquire that you have produced?
I've written 3 books, but they're all on retirement. I know I would defer to fellows such as Dave Ramsey, who is a true expert in this debt business. And I would also want to make sure that people always take a biblical perspective on debt, as I know Dave does. It's not a sin to borrow money. It's a sin to borrow money and be extravagant with that money and not pay back who you owe with that money. It's not a sin, for example, for Lisa to have filed for bankruptcy. That is a legal process. Donald Trump has told us all about that. It is a legal process there to help people get a fresh start. So I would want people to make sure they have a great perspective on all of this and not beat themselves up too badly if they get themselves in hock. Just make sure that when you come out of it, whether it's you've paid your debt off or, God forbid, you're forced into a bankruptcy situation, that you take out of that what is the most important part, which is the learning experience, so that you can pass along to others the blessings that you've had by being able to either get yourself out of debt or use the American system, as much as we may or may not like it, but it is necessary for some. Not all, but it is necessary for some to file a chapter in order to give yourself a fresh start. And then go out to preach to your brothers and your sisters so that they don't get themselves into that kind of trouble, financially speaking.
Paul, thank you for your call. I would recommend one other very good resource. Ray, you may be familiar with Phil Lenahan, who works at Catholic Answers right in your neck of the woods. And he's got actually an online course, 7 Steps to Becoming Financially Free. And it's at VeritasFinancialMinistries.com, VERITAS, Veritas, Latin for truth, VeritasFinancialMinistries.com. I know Phil very, very well, and he has devoted so much of his life to this as you have, Ray. So, Paul, thank you for joining us. We've got Gail and Peter and others. Hold on just a couple of minutes. More from Ray Lucia. Great insights and advice on handling our finances, getting out of debt. That's what we're talking about today on Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. Our number, if you'd like to get on board, 1-800-585-9396. Like us at EWTN Catholic Radio on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Take 2 Show. And we are coming right back.
This is Al Cresta, host of Cresta in the Afternoon, and Cresta in the Afternoon looks at all of life through the lens of Scripture and the teaching of the Catholic Church. Church teaching is the light by which we view the world, and so we'll explore everything, from abortion to Hollywood, and from the First Amendment to the United Nations, and everything in between. Following St. Paul, we're seeking transformation through the renewing of our minds. So that's Cresta in the Afternoon with me, Al Cresta, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Get an insider's look at the latest information from EWTN. Sign up for Wings, EWTN's weekly email newsletter. Get the latest information about live events, special features, and guests. Connect with EWTN on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just go to EWTN.com and click on the Wings link to sign up. Don't miss a minute of all that's happening at EWTN. Get your wings today.
This is Archbishop Charles J. Chaput, the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and you're listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
We're so glad you stayed with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And speaking about the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page, we are less than 100 likes away from having that 3,000 like virtual celebration we've been talking about for the past month. Less than 100 likes away. So if you can like the Facebook page and then invite your friends to do so as well, we can have that celebration hopefully by the end of the week, and that would be exciting. So I know Gail's been waiting patiently, but before we get to Gail, Ray, can you answer real quickly what I was sharing with you about the fact that my husband, would like me to travel around with envelopes full of cash so I can pay for cash and not pull out the credit cards, but I just feel nervous sometimes carrying that. I mean, is there anything, and how do you guys do it?
Yeah, I would certainly appreciate where you're coming from, and I wouldn't want my wife running around with an envelope filled with $100 bills for sure. Here's the way we deal with it. We do have credit cards. We use American Express almost exclusively. And as you know, with American Express, you must pay the bill at the end of every month. And so if you use either a debit card, I also have a debit card that I use. Use a debit card. That's money coming right out of your bank account. If you use American Express or a card where you have to pay every single month, there's nothing wrong with owning a card. And clearly, establishing the credit and keeping your credit score high certainly helps you when it comes time where you do need to borrow. And we should point out, Debbie, that borrowing isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you borrow for appreciating assets, such as a home, or to invest in your business, that's one thing. If you borrow to buy cool stuff at the mall, that's another. And one other thing we should point out when it comes to spending money, and that is the tax consequence of spending money on non-deductible interest, for example. Credit card interest, unlike mortgage interest, you cannot deduct on your income taxes. Therefore, if you live in my state, it's very easy to be in a 33% marginal bracket. So if you charge $1 on your credit card and you have to pay 15 cents in interest, you're going to have to take 50% of that $1.15 and add it to the $1.50. You're not going to need about $1.70 to pay off the $1.15. That's the reality of life. So if I were you, I wouldn't carry a wad of hundreds in your purse. Carry some credit cards that you have to pay off at the end of every month. But when you go out to dinner and stuff like that, throw a 50 in your purse and use cash, because you will spend less. You guys will share an appetizer. You'll drink water instead of the Pana or whatever the bottled water it is that costs you $8.95 a glass. And you might pass on the expensive cocktail and maybe share a glass of wine like my wife and I do all the time.
That's actually great advice, Ray. Even when you were speaking, I didn't feel that angst in my stomach. Like when my husband and I talk about it, I start to get panicked that I'm going to lose my ability to. So when you said it, I kind of can handle it. I mean, that was really good. So I'm hoping, I think that'll make my husband happy. But I know we're going to move right along to Gail. She gets our Patience Award for today. You've been waiting so patiently, listening on the EWTN.com, and you're calling from the northwest, beautiful area of Canada. Welcome, Gail, to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and our guest, Ray Lucia.
Thank you.
What's your take?
Okay, so my take is I think one of the important things that couples can do to avoid debt is to learn to tithe. When we were a young couple, that's what we started right from the very beginning. We've been married, my husband and I have been married 34 years. We have 6 children, and we have worked basically one full-time job, and sometimes I would do part-time work. I homeschooled for a number of years, and we had everything that we needed. And we found that when we give to God, God gives back. He gives back health-wise. He gives back, we had harmony in our house. There are just so many blessings that come back to us, through our being generous with God. And, So I think that's a great way to avoid debt. We have avoided debt. I really believe that. Oh, yeah, the one other thing I wanted to say is that, it's not easy to give because there's always a need to buy something. But when the kids were little, I used to do little things like I'd have them in cloth diapers, and then our weekly donation would be, okay, so that's my Pampers. And, instead of buying a throwaway, I would use cloth diapers. And we drove old cars for a long time and we would give our donation, and I would say to myself, well, God, that's my new car payment. That's for you. And God has always provided for us.
Gail, thank you very much for that. Matthew 6:33, seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. And if you live by that, I think what Gail is saying is spot on. I'll add one other point here, gang, because I came across a very small book that you can read in 10 or 15 minutes. It's a fantastic book on saving. It's called A Money-Saving Mindset, 40 Ways to Help You Save. And this is a way for you to free up some cash so that you can tithe, free up some cash so that you can get out of debt. And it's written by a Christian fellow by the name of Derek Polen, Polen. And as a matter of fact, if you would like, I would be delighted if you go to my website, raylucia.com, and just ask for it. I probably have 50 or 100 of these sitting in the back cabinet. I'll be delighted, Jerry and Debbie, to send a copy of this book out to each. And I wish I wrote it. I didn't, but I try to live by it. A money-saving mindset, and it gives you tons of tips and ideas on how to save money each month. And I shared it with my producer, Bobby Wooldridge, who you guys were speaking with to arrange this. And Bobby said he went through it and he saved several $100s per month. If you just go to raylucia.com and just click on the Ask Ray button, ask me for a copy of the book, and we'll say the first 50 people that go to the website and ask for it, I'll be happy to send it out. Compliments of Jerry and Debbie with their program Take Two. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me, Tina, or rather Gail. How does that sound to you, Gail?
Boy, that sounds very generous.
Better hurry. There's probably people right. going there right now. All right, that's raylucia.com. Thank you, Ray, so much for that. That's very gracious of you. And we want to squeeze in. We've got about 2, maybe 3 minutes at the most. We want to hear from Peter and get his take and then Ray's thoughts. Peter is in Denver, also listening on Denver Catholic Radio. Hello, Peter. What's on your mind today?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say, my wife and I have been living debt-free for the last 7 to 8 years, everything except for our mortgage. And mainly what it comes down to is us living with a plan, each month knowing what we have and what we can do and know where the money's going instead of having all the desires in the world influence us on taking money out of our pockets. And mainly from that, the biggest thing is it's helped us walk a more Catholic Christian life. The biggest impact over the last 5 years was God spoke to us to adopt a child. And so because we were in a financial position, we were able to decided to go through the process of adopting a little boy from China. And this was after, thinking that, having 4 kids was enough. And we just heard the calling of God say, there's another child out there that belongs to your family. And I want to just encourage people out there to, live financially responsible so that they can listen to God's word, speak to their heart, and, have them step out of their comfort zone and see what God is really, truly calling them to do.
You got about 1 minute there, Ray. Sorry about that.
Well, I would just say, God bless you, Peter. I think that's a fantastic advice, and I agree. I guess if I could sum it up, it would be a perspective on debt. Not only a biblical perspective, but a family perspective, getting together with your spouse and your children and explaining to them what happens when you get yourself into debt, non-deductible debt, bad debt, how you can use good debt to your advantage in terms of buying a house or starting a business, and how you might be able to really make a difference in not only your life, but other people's lives by keeping yourself financially secure. I think that's the best advice for all of us, and that is to keep a very positive attitude, pray a lot, and keep a great perspective on your own financial situation.
And well said, Ray. And Peter, thank you so much for calling in. Another inspiring call. And God bless your beautiful, expanding family. And just a great call. I mean, it really warmed our hearts. So thank you, Peter. And God bless you calling in from Denver, Colorado on Denver Catholic Radio. And Tina, forgive us. Please forgive us. Keep the conversation going on take2show.com.
Or email Ray, maybe ask him through his website.
That's right. Email. Yes, exactly. And you can email Ray. We want to keep the conversation going. And this hour goes so fast, Ray. We cannot thank you enough for being with us. You have imparted such wisdom to all of us, including me. I mean, I'm already texting my husband saying, okay, honey, you're right. So my takeaway is, okay, Marty, you were right. I'll start paying for things in cash and paying off the American Express and doing exactly what you and Ray have said. So, yeah, I know, Ray, you're laughing, but I'm being really serious. I really have to do this now. So,
all right.
I was laughing because in my family, my wife is always right.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for being with us. And again, the first 50 people who go to Ray Lucia, Lucia, raylucia.com, fill out the Ask Ray form. He'll send you a copy of that wonderful book with 40 great ideas on saving money. Ray, we'll hope to have you back on the show again sometime.
Love to do it. Thank you. God bless you all, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. My takeaway is I have been out of debt for several years. I have credit cards. I pay them all off like cash every month, and I just want to let all of you know, if you get out of debt, it's an awesome feeling. So do whatever you have to do to get there.
yeah, it's freedom. Tomorrow is Single Life a Vocation. Join us tomorrow. But until then, have a beautiful and blessed day.